I've always been fascinated by Lawrence. I remember I was a kid when I saw the movie Lawrence of Arabia. I think I was about 5 or 6. He was able to do it because no one was really paying that much attention. This is in the midst of World War I. All the tension was on the Western Front in France. So what was happening in the Middle East was just a complete afterthought. So among the British leadership, military leadership, if some guy could go off and cause trouble for the Turkish enemy, well, that's great. And so he had very little, grown-up supervision essentially. And then it occurred to me, well, if that was true about Lawrence, it was true about the Brits, who were certainly the biggest players in the Middle East, and it must have been true about the other powers also. And so from that, I started looking around and finding these other characters that virtually no one's ever heard of before. It, it was pretty crazy. I had I hired a researcher in Germany to go through the foreign ministry archives there. Somebody else to go through the Jewish settler Israeli archives. Had somebody in Washington going through the American National Archives, and I did most of the British research myself. So I probably spent all told about 4 months going through the National Archives in London, and then going to this crazy little system where British officials during World War I, around that period, when they left office, they could just take their documents with them, even though. And so I found myself having to go to all these like little towns all over England, at usually the university libraries, and because it was the only place to find this material I needed. So yeah, it was a lot of research. Yeah, it probably says more about me than anything. In a way, the German character is my favorite. He's just such a scoundrel, and he was also a scholar like Lawrence was. He was an Orientalist, um, and he had this accent. He had an operation when he was a kid. It was a botched operation, and so his voice was this kind of. It was described as this feathery whisper. So that's how. And I love the idea of this German spy and counterintelligence agent running around the Middle East with this little feathery voice. but because again I knew very little about Germany at that time of World War I, and so I was really fascinated by him, um, and yeah, kind of a fascinating character, dark figure, definitely a scoundrel, but kind of like him for that reason. I think my book, so it falls more into the camp of call it the pro T. Lawrence camp. My portrait of Lawrence is rather dark. I mean, when he was out in the field, he was executing prisoners. He was leaving wounded men behind to die. Um, so it's a rather darker view of him than what you traditionally see in the pro T. Lawrence camp biographies. I'd say the biggest surprise I got was I got an understanding of the history of the 20th century that I just didn't have before. I mean, I just think to really understand World War II, the Cold War, everything, it all has its roots in World War I.